Hi there, this is Rishabh and I welcome you to video number 8 of Python-for series. So in this video we are going to talk about repetition with loops. Now repetition is again another concept which is very fundamental to both humans and computers. There are a lot of tasks in which we perform which are repetitive. So I have written some examples here. So like push-ups for an example. So when we are going to gym and we are doing push-ups, so almost all the times we have a certain number which we try to achieve. So like as long as the count is less than 50, let's say, I have to keep doing push-ups. Similarly, if I'm eating something, if I have a count of 4 in my mind, so as long as that count is not reached, I will keep eating the chapatis. Similarly, if I'm going to distribute some Christmas gifts, for example, then let's say there's a building with 10 stories, and as long as I'm in that range, I have to keep distributing the gifts, and so on. Like there are so many examples of repetition which we can take from real life. There are a lot of practical examples of repetition. I mean, we can think of like courier distribution, for example. As long as I have parcels to be distributed, I have to keep distributing. And yeah, we can think of many such examples. So in Python, we have got two very basic ways of expressing the repetitive ideas, like the ones we discussed. Now the first is a for loop. And let's talk about the syntax of the for loop. So for iterator and iterable, the block of code. We have already talked about what exactly the block of code is. And let's discuss what exactly iterator, iterable are. So iterator is basically a variable which takes all the values in the iterable one by one. So there are certain values in this iterable. The iterable basically provides certain values to us, and the iterator will assume all those values one by one. So it will go to all those values one by one. Let's say there are values from 1 to 10 in the iterable. Then my iterator will assume all those values. Like in the first iteration, it will be having value 1, then 2, then 3, and so on up till the value which is represented by the iterable. So that is what the iterator is. Now what exactly is the iterable? Iterable is a sequence or a range which we can traverse one by one. So it's basically a sequence. So for example, a range of numbers from 1 to 10, a range of numbers from 1 to 100, or let's say a sequence of names, for example. We will discuss that more when we cover lists and arrays, but for now you can assume that an iterable is a sequence or a range which we can iterate over. So if I have to give you an example, let's say students equals A, B, then C, then D, and so on. So this is now a sequence. We can iterate upon this sequence, so we can call it an iterable, that we can iterate upon it, and the iterator will assume all these values one by one. So if I have to perform any operation on any of these values, I can easily perform with the help of a for loop. A block of code, as you already know, like any code statements which are to be executed in the repetitive fashion, right? So then the next construct or the next control structure which we have in Python for expressing the repetitive ideas is the while loop. Now what is the syntax of a while loop? The syntax of while loop is slightly different than that of the for loop. So we have while, a criteria. What exactly is a criteria? Well, criteria is any expression which evaluates to a boolean. When I say it evaluates to a boolean, it means that it either should result in a true or it should result in a false. If it results in a true, then the block of code will be executed, and if it results in a false, then the block of code will not be executed. Here I have written some examples, but I think it would be good if we can explore some expressions. So let's say if I write 5 less than 10, it's an expression and it should evaluate to true because we know that 5 is less than 10. Now let's say if we have something else, for example, I can write this also. I can straight away write this, even though in most cases we'll be writing something which is more of a criteria like. So for example, let's say 5 is none. None means something which is having no value, but 5, because 5 is having, like 5 is an integer, so that means it's not none. So this will return a false. So yes, now we can see that there is a syntax warning as well, which means that we are trying to use it with a literal, and in such scenarios we should be using this for comparison. So 5 equals none, it returns a false again, right? Similarly, I can check one more thing, whether 5 equals the character 5. This is also an expression which returns me a false, because the integer value of 5 is not equal to my character value of 5. That's why this is returning me a false. And so in this way, like, we can use different criterias based on what exactly is it that we are trying to achieve, based on what the problem requires us to use. So we have learned about two control structures, one being the for loop, one is the while loop, and we have discussed the syntax for both of these. So for the for loop, it is like for iterator and iterable, execute the block of code, right? Similarly, for the while loop, the syntax is very simple again. While a certain criteria returns a boolean value of true, keep executing the block of code. As long as this criteria starts returning a false, stop executing the block of the code, right? Now let's write some code to understand these more. We'll try to write code for both these syntaxes. First of all, let's copy the syntax for the for loop. Let's go to tables. By tables, what I mean is, like, we used to when we were very young, I mean in the primary classes, we were taught about tables of, let's say, 2, 3, 4 and so on, and we used to print them. I mean, we used to write them on a notebook, but today we will try to print them. So let's see how we can use this for loop for the same purpose. So for iterator in iterable, right? So let me first of all build an iterable. I can use a range function which is available in Python, and I can give it values 1 to 11. So this last value is not included by default, like so, which means my iterator will be taking values from 1 to 10, right? So let's see whether that is the case. First of all, let me print my iterator. So let's see what the iterator prints. Let's just exit out of this, and now video 8 and then tables.py. Cool. As we can see that what I have done is I have printed the value of iterator, and that value has been printed on the screen, right? And now what I want to do is I want to say iterator times, let's say I want to print the table of 2. What I will do, I'll say iterator times 2. This will print the table of 2 for me. Cool. So as we can see, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 and so on, right? Similarly, I can print any table. Now let's just make this a little I would say a little clean and more readable, so that, like, it's easier for read as a table. So iterator times, let me just write it like this. So first of all, we have, let's say, iterator, then times, then 2, then equals, or we can do the reverse as well, that is 2 times iterator equals, now let's put this also as a variable, right? Iterator into 2. Cool. And now let's try to print, let's see what we get. Cool. So 2 into 1 2, 2 into 2 4, 2 into 3 6, and so on up till 20. So we have got this. And now let's try to do the same thing with the help of the while syntax. Let me comment this for now, and let's just go back and let's just copy this syntax as well. So here we need to provide a criteria. So let's take a variable, let's call it iterator only. Iterator equals let's say 1, and now we have to provide the criteria, that is iterator less than 11. So because we want to go up till 10, we can give the criteria as iterator less than 11, or we can also say iterator less than or equal to 10. Now that we have seen the less than example, let's look at the less than equal to example, which is iterator less than or equal to 10. So as long as the iterator is less than or equal to 10, what we want to do is we want to say print. Then I'm going to use the same thing which we have done on the above. So it says 2 times iterator equals this. So instead of 2, we can use something like, let's say 5 this time. But there is one more step here which I have to perform, that is iterator plus equals 1. So this is one of the ways of saying that iterator equals iterator plus 1, right? I mean that is just a shorthand of writing this, so let me make this even more simpler. Iterator equals iterator plus 1. So in each iteration, iterator will be incremented by 1. So for example, when the first iteration, the iterator's value will be 1. Then when it reaches line number 9, its value will be incremented, it will become 2. And this will keep on repeating as long as the iterator is less than or equal to 10. Now what happens once it becomes 10? Well, this condition or this criteria will start returning false, and we will come out of this loop and the program will exit, because there is absolutely nothing which is written outside of this loop, right? So yes, let's try to execute this and see the results. Let's say Python, then video 8, and then tables.py. Let's execute this, and as we can see, the table of 5 is printed now. 5 into 1 is 5, then 5 into 5 is 25, similarly 5 into 10 is 50. So in this way we can actually start repeating complex ideas as well, and we will see that loops and decision making, they are something very important in any programming language, not only in Python. And so in the coming videos, we will actually try to solve some of the problems using these 2 basic concepts, that is decision making and looping. And we will try to cover many cases, like we'll try to cover things like operators. We'll try to cover cases where both the concepts are used simultaneously. For example, you have to use decision making as well as you have to use looping. Cool. So yep, I think I hope this video was clear. We learned about 2 ways of repeating things in Python. So yep, that's it for this video. Hope to see you in the next one. Thanks a lot for watching, and bye bye.